There-
Continue.
There's one other little thing I wanted to just throw in the mix here because when Nana said about it was more about distance sort of investing in you guys being over in Sweden. There's something that that I've done a lot of just recently, which is more of a you probably come across the term lease options, yeah. So that's something that you would control a property, you won't own it, you won't buy it. But with what I've done in with that is you're kind of doing something that's called a sandwich option. So you're taking a lease option of a property to buy it, but then you're then giving someone else the option to someone to buy that property. So how does this work? So let's say I've gone to somebody and they've given me the option to buy their property in 7 years' time. Until then, I pay them a certain amount, whatever that is. It might be that I'm paying their mortgage, or I might be paying them a rental, and I've turned it into a HMO, or I've turned it to an Airbnb or something like that. But then at the same time, you don't have to do that. You could then say, well, I've taken it from this person, and I can then rent it to somebody else who wants to buy it at the end. So let's say, just easy figures, I've agreed to buy this property from somebody for £100,000 sometime in the next 7 years. And I'm going to pay them an agreed amount every month. And I'm going to maintain it. I'm going to look after it. I'm going to take care of it. I will then go and find somebody else who can't right now buy a property. Maybe they've got a great credit score. Maybe they're new to the country. Maybe they've had problems with their business or something like that. And I will then rent it to them for 6 years. So I've got it for 7. I will rent it to them for 6. I've got a year in the middle. And I will give them an option to buy it higher. So I say, look, you know what, in 6 years' time, this property is going to go up however many percent it is. I'll look at the area and say, properties in this area are going up by this much every year. So I'm going to sell it to you for 125. So I've now got the option to buy it for 100. This person's got the option to buy it for 125. They're then going to rent it for me as well, whatever the going rent is. So I can make some money in between there as well. So I can make some money on the rent and I can make some money on the uplift. The best thing about that, though, is on a rent to buy, the person who's renting it from you, the way you market it is it's going to be their home. It's just that right now they can't afford to buy it for whatever reason. They haven't got a deposit saved up. They haven't got a good credit score. They can't get the lending, whatever it is. So you're saying this is going to be your home. Therefore, I'm not going to do any work to it. You're going to do all the work. You're going to do all the maintenance. You're going to look after it. You're going to do it up the way you want to. If it needs a new kitchen, you're going to put a new kitchen in. Needs a new carpets, you're going to do it because it's going to be your house. It's going to be your place to live in. I'm not going to come and say you can't put those nails up on that wall. You've got to take those pictures down or you can't paint it that color. And then that way you've got no costs for yourself in the middle other than the stuff you have to do, which is the gas safety and the electrical. So I'll give you an example. So I did this with an auction property. I went to to look at this auction property not far from where I am now, and I looked at it. This was probably about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. And it was in the auction, and I looked at it and thought, how can I? It was an end of terrace, 3-bedroom house. How can I make this work? And I looked at the figures, and it was 142,500 is what I could have got it from because it didn't sell at auction. I knew the auctioneer said, well, if you pay this, you can have it. It needed £30,000 worth of work, and the property was only going to be worth 175 at the end of it. So I did my figures and I thought, okay, well, if it's only worth 175, I refinance, I can only get 130. I'm going to leave in about 40,000 in this property. And I'm probably only going to get, I looked at the rents, I'm probably going to get about 750 for it. So my return on investment was rubbish. I'm not doing it. I've decided I'm not doing that property because it's not going to work. Now I had a cleaner at that time who was cleaning my my HMOs. And I just happened to mention to her that I'd seen this property. And she told me she was in a property and it was rented. And the landlord was, in her words, awful, terrible. She said, I've done all this work to this property. She even put in new windows at the back. She wanted bifolding windows at the back to her garden. And the landlord wouldn't do it. So she paid for it herself. And I was listening and she said, and she's done all this work. And she said, and suddenly there were some rats underneath the floorboards. And she had 2 little Jack Russells dogs that were just going crazy trying to get to these rats because they could smell them and hear them. So she told the landlord came around and all he did was he sealed up the hole. The rats were still in there going around and the dogs were still going crazy. And she's like, I can't sleep. It's kind of so I said to her, okay, well, how much are you paying? So I asked her what a rent was, and she said the rent was 750. And I said, well, how about this? Would you be interested? Because I knew that her credit score wasn't great. Would you be interested in buying a property from me sometime in the future, renting it and then buying it in the future? And she said, well, how does that work? So I explained to her that if she had it, she would have to do all the work to it. She'd have to do all the maintenance to it. She'd have to look after it. She would get the option to buy it, and we'll fix that price. And I put 5 years with her. So between now and then, you've got to pay rent. And if you want to, you can pay a little bit over the rent into another account towards your deposit when you buy it. So because she was a cleaner, she had kind of money coming in at all different times. So one week she might get £1,000, one week she might get 1,500, and her money was kind of all over the place. So she would bring in, and she said, I've got a little bit extra, so I'll put it into an account. So the way I worked it, I bought the property for 142,500. I then agreed to her that I'd sell it to her for 175,000 in 5 years' time. So at the time, I said, okay. Now the property needed work doing. So it wasn't wrecked. It's just the guy who had it before was a bit of a carpenter, and he just put wood everywhere. The whole walls were covered in wood, and it wasn't particularly nice. And so that would have all had to come off and do the work. So I said, your home, you can do with it what you want, look after the way you want to. I committed to doing the electric because I wanted the electrics done to be safe. So I spent £3,000 getting the electrics tested and put right. And that's all my commitment was to it. I bought the house. So again, I had a deposit of £38,000. I rented it for 750. The mortgage was about 500, so I'm making about £200 in there. In fact, £216 a month. And I'd agreed to sell it to for 175. So I'll make another £30,000 there. So over the period of 5 years, I was going to make a lot of money. There's also an option which you can put in there in the option agreement. You can have something called an option consideration where they pay a chunk down, which is less than the deposit. It might be 5% of the property purchase. She was over the moon. She's in it now. She's over the moon now. She has got a house that she's going to call her home. She phoned me up when she went in there. She'd been to Magnet Kitchens, and she's got these samples. And she said, Neil, come and look at the kitchens. I'm looking at this color. It's going to be eggshell, whatever it is. And I'm like, I don't care what color the kitchen is, Lizzie. I don't really. So it's your kitchen. She said, no, come. And she wanted me to come and have a look at the kitchen and the samples. She's completely done the property up outside, inside. She's just done all the outside, and she's created herself a nice little patio area she's put a jacuzzi outside, like a hot tub, and a kind of a cover over. And every time she does something, she phones me up and says, "You got to come and see this." She's painting the outside of the house. I saw her yesterday. She's painting the outside of the house a different color. It's her home, and it's her home. So I've had nothing to do with it. But every time she wants to do something, she asks me. She'll say to me, "Is it all right if I do this?" And I'm saying, "That's fine." And all I do is make sure the gas boiler's there. So that's very hands off. It's helping somebody again, but it's also very hands off, and you can make money. And we had a little incident. So the mortgage rate changed. So I had a 2-year fixed on it to start with. Last year, it went up a little bit, only a little bit. It went up I think about £50 or £60 a month more. And I said, Lizzie, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to put the rent up a little bit because the mortgage has gone up. Now, it went up £50. I thought, no, I'm not going to put it up £50 in there. I'll put it up 25. We'll cover the half each. And she said, how much has it gone up by? And I said, it's gone up a little bit. Don't worry, you just got to pay £25 more. She said, no, how much has it gone up? I said, it's gone up £50. She goes, I'll pay the extra 50 because I'll pay an extra, £50 a month for my rent so that your mortgage is okay, you're covered. And we got that kind of relationship. So she's very pleased to have a house of her own, so she called her own, so that she did what she likes to. And I'm very pleased to have somebody that's looking after the property as if it was their own property. There could be a chance that I think next year will be 5 years, or might be a year after. There could be a chance that she can't afford it or she can't buy it in 5 years' time. So what can you do? I wouldn't take an offer. What we'll do is just sit down and renegotiate. So look, okay, you want to do another 5 years? Let's work out the figures. What's it going to be? Are you happy to do it on this basis? And I never push it hard. I just say, look, these are the stats. It's going up every year, 5% here. So it would be worth this in 5. This house is already worth 200,000, and she can buy it for 175 now. And I'll sell it to her because that's what I agreed. So if she can get that money. So that's another little thing that you might want to consider from your distance investing. Any questions on that one? Anna, you probably got 100, haven't you?
No. No, actually not. That's because we don't have a tenant buy, but we have like the two that I mentioned to you that I'm gonna visit. They're actually lease options. So yeah,
Yeah.
they're popping up now when their interest rates are creeping up, it seems.
It's going to be, I think, well, we're nearly at the end of the year now, but at the end of this year, early next year, we're really going to see a lot of pain. And unless the government steps in and helps people with their mortgages and does something, there's going to be a lot more. There's already a lot more coming on the market now because people have they've been in their fixed rates and they've kind of thought, okay, well, things might change, things might come down again, but they're not really coming down that much at the moment. So there is going to be a lot more opportunity in lease options and this kind of thing. But social housing and this kind of thing, and where I come from is all about, it's not just about making as much money as you can, it's about helping someone else as well in some way. And was it the lady who was speaking a minute ago saying that she had someone in that trashed her house, and I've
Yeah,
had
yeah, I
someone
know.
that trashed my house, Anna. But
Yeah.
I will still give my house to somebody. I won't give it to ex-drug users, but I'll give my house to people who maybe need that little help, you know, and that's what life's all about. If you can, you can. If you're making money, they're happy and they're doing well, then everybody's winning, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
I would still rent to like tenants that could be a little bit like that if I lived close by, so I could go check up on the property myself quite often. But on a distance, I just wouldn't take the risk because so much can happen before you discover that it's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. You go. Yeah.
No, I mean that's all I was going to say. Unless there's anything else you wanted me to cover, but I'm happy to answer any more questions if there are any, or just generally chat.
Yeah, I would like to ask you about. You mentioned it a bit, like where the market is going, and what would you suggest doing now moving forward, like from now on, and let's say a year.
Options. For you know, rent to rent. I don't really like because you never really have any control or ownership. But even rent to rent is a something that you might consider. But if you can get things on an option, it's so powerful at the moment. And if people are in that situation where their mortgage is just so high, and you can do something to that property to improve it to get a higher rent, then and they just don't have the money, or they're in pain, or they've had bad tenants and they don't want to deal with them anymore, or they've lost their jobs, or whatever the situation is, options are very, very powerful and very, very useful. And they're so flexible. You can just sit with them and say, what do you want? What do you need? So an option I did with a young lady once was she had the property on the market for sale, but it wasn't just the mortgage she had. She also had 2 loans against the property as well. And so during the course of conversations, you have to have multiple conversations with people before you get to the bottom of what really is the problem. She then told me that she had these 2 loans as well, so that added maybe another £10,000 to what she needed. But she also told me that she was paying them off, and one of them only had about a year to go. So I agreed with her a whole thing that I would pay the loans for her and I would pay the mortgage, because I was going to turn this into a HMO. And knowing that one of the loans would drop off in a year, so I'd start making a bit more money then anyway. I agreed to do the whole thing with her on that basis, that way I knew the loans that were secured against the house were going to get paid, but also knew that her mortgage was going to get paid as well, while I had it as a HMO until we decided to buy it.
Question there.
Sorry?
How, if you do a lease option like that, how can you make sure that she don't take new loans towards the property?
You can't. There is a problem that she might do. You can put
Restriction.
again. You can put caveat things on the land registry to say that if any loan is applied for, that you get notified.
Okay, yeah.
So you get a letter or a message saying, you know, a loan has been applied against this property, so you get us kind of notified against it. But there is an element, if they were that way inclined, they could try it. They could try and do that. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, we on the two that we have restriction and notification, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So if she or he would do anything, we'll get notified basically.
Yeah.
And then obviously the deal is off, so we need to renegotiate.
Funny, I was putting a notification on one I had, and when you put a notification on, they write to the current owner to say a notification's going on. Well, they wrote to me to tell me that a notification was going on, not to the owner. I was like, I would just I put it on. They don't always get it right, but yeah, you can protect yourself in that way.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Neil.
Alex,
If you were like us sitting in a different country, what approach would you have to the lease option, double lease option thing that you're doing?
I love lease options. I really do. I think they're so flexible, so powerful for you. You have no obligation to buy. You have the option to buy, but no obligation to buy. So if at any point something goes wrong, you can just walk away. So if, like Anna was saying, somebody does apply for a loan against the property and defaults on it, you could just say, do you know what? The deal's off. I'm off. And here's your property back. And off you go, because you're not obliged. You don't have to buy it. So it gives you so much more security, but they have to sell it to you when you want to, when you're ready to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, it's love him or hate him. It's what Donald Trump built his empire on.
Yes.
He's one of the biggest lease option people in the world. So it's about controlling properties, but not owning properties, not having to take that debt. So it's a powerful, powerful tool. So for where you are distance, you've got that option at any point to say, something's not right here. I don't like it. I'm going to walk away. And it doesn't cost you any money.
How do you find the lease options?
Lease options you would put in same sort of way as if you were looking for normal properties. You might put adverts in the paper or leaflets or letters. Some of the things we do is we write to owners, like HMO owners at the moment. We're writing to a lot of HMO owners because they're all getting out, and we're sort of asking them if they want to sell their property. It'd be a typical, do you want to sell initially? And then when you start talking,
how do you find who has HMOs? How do you find the owners?
HMOs, different councils, you have to, if it's licensed, it has to be published on the council website. So you can go and get the list for free. Some of them are limited companies, so you then got to go to company's house and find out where their address is to send it to. But so we had a list of, I think, of about 60 or so HMOs, licensed HMOs in Swindon, near where I am, which we were going to write to and say, okay, do you want to sell? And then you start the conversation. But it's direct to vendor stuff that you get the lease options working.
Yeah, that's basically how all of the sources do it.
Yeah. If you're on Facebook, you could do it on Facebook, but you can't explain it as a lease option. You've got to say, do you want to sell your house fast, or something like that? And then you just kind of, people will call you, and then you can then, from the conversation with them, start drilling down, what's your situation. So I always say, why are you selling? What do you need to sell for? And then you find out if they're upgrading because they've got a bigger family, for example, they have more children or something like that, then they're not going to be interested in doing an option because they need the money to go and buy the bigger property.
Yeah.
But if they're downsizing, or they're leaving the country, or they'll tell you we can't afford the mortgage, then you can start getting into the conversation with them. What if I took on your mortgage? What if I babysat your mortgage for you, and I paid your mortgage, and then looked after the property and all the bills for you? Then they'll go going, well, how does that work? And then you can start explaining it to them.
Another way you can do it as well is, like, if you, maybe not so difficult in this market, but if you find a property that's both on let and on sale, then obviously and it's been a while, they're motivated. So
there's a lot of commercial property like that you can grab like that at the moment. If there's commercial stuff for let and for sale, and you can get a conversion, so you can get plans to change them. You can take it on an option, to achieve planning permission. So if you don't get the planning permission, you don't buy it. If you get the planning permission, you move forward with it. Like that.
Just like Donald.
Just like Donald. I was worried about saying his name because he's a bit weird.
Yeah, like I said, like I, as a business person, he's good, you know.
Yeah.
But the other stuff,
Yeah.
we leave that part out.
Fabulous. So has that been useful? Is there any more questions?
I'm happy. I don't know with the group, but I'm happy now.
Yeah, I think it was very useful.
Happy.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Thank you for
Thank
asking me on. If
Thank
you've got
you. Neil.
if you've
Thank
got
you
any more
very much.
questions or anything, just drop me a message or whatever. I think Nana, you talked to me on Messenger on Facebook, didn't you? So
Yeah,
if you've got anything you want to, just find me on Facebook and message me or whatever, and I'm
yeah.
happy to.
I'll put all of your details in our group. So I'm just gonna ask you if you've changed mail. Who knows? But yeah, I'll ask that, and then if obviously, like you mentioned, the slides or the PDF that you had there, if they wanted to have it, I'll share it to the group as well.
You're welcome. It was lovely to meet you all.